My next guest, host of OutKick the Coverage, which you can hear on our sister station, 1340 The Fan, from 5 to 7 a.m. on 1340 The Fan. His show is absolutely blowing up across the country. Clay Travis joining me. Clay, good morning. How are you?
I'm excellent. How are you guys?
Doing great. Thanks for coming on the show today. The reason I wanted to have you on is because you have been on a huge kick for a while now about the blending of sports and politics. And, you know, as you know, this is a political show, and you know, I've been talking about this for a long time, and especially this year when we've seen the blending of the NFL politics, and it's just it's a beatdown. It's really what it's become. And you've written a big piece about this on about ESPN and about them adapting this liberal mindset, and about how it's really affected not only I think ESPN, but really sports in general and sports media, right?
Yeah, I come at sports, and I think a lot of people probably come at sports this way, as the ultimate meritocracy. In other words, sports success is actually pretty conservative, because you can put everybody on the field, you can put everybody on the rink, you can put everybody on the court, and figure out who's the best. And the people that are the best make the most money, they win the championships, they are the ones who receive the most endorsement dollars. And so to me, that's the number one story. And what we've seen of late is there has been a decision made, and I'm not sure why exactly. I think it's a bad business decision. But as revenue has started to decline, I think ESPN has started to flounder around looking for a reason to exist outside of the games themselves, because they may well lose the games at some point in time in the future. And so they've decided to become opinionated. And that's fine if you want to be opinionated about sports in a political arena, but they've done it entirely on one side. So you have the Caitlyn Jenners of the world getting the ESPY for bravery. You have Michael Sam being treated as if he's the Jackie Robinson of sports because he's gay and he plays football. And I think it's just continued with Colin Kaepernick being almost universally praised on ESPN for his decision to protest and take a knee before games, for LeBron James' decision to come out and criticize whatever it is, for the Patriots players not to go to the White House. Almost uniformly, if you adopt a liberal perspective, you are praised by by ESPN, which I now call MS ESPN. And I think that's unfortunate for a lot of people, because they want to escape from sports. Sports used to be the dessert of life, the toy chest of our otherwise serious existence, and now it's become just another way to interject politics into daily life.
Is it an ego thing from ESPN, you think, that because in my opinion, this hasn't worked. And you look at the numbers for ESPN, it hasn't worked, this left-wing swing that they've made. And I think by and large, and you probably hear this a lot from your audience, they want the politics taken out of sports just in general when they're going through. They just want to relax. They want to watch a game. They don't want to be lectured to by Bob Costas of NBC about guns. They don't want to be lectured to about how Colin Kaepernick is brave. They don't want to hear any of that. They just want to see a game. Is it an ego thing now to where ESPN just can't back down?
I think what's happening is ESPN is drowning, because I think their business model has flooded the castle of Disney, so to speak, when it comes to ESPN. And I think they're floundering around looking for a way to reverse that tide. And if you think about it contextually, if you see somebody drowning, what do they often do? They're not calm, they're flailing. And that's how a lot of times they end up drowning somebody else who tries to come save them, because panic sets in. And I think ESPN basically is drowning, and instead of like trying to learn how to swim, they basically have decided, oh, you know what, we're drowning. Let's go ahead and pick up this big rock and hold it above our heads, and maybe that'll keep us from sinking. And in reality, it's accelerating the speed with which they are drowning.
How is this going to affect ESPN and sports, and in particular college sports, in the future, you think?
Well, I think, one, you've got an unholy alliance between ESPN and many of the college football conferences that it covers, right? Because college football fans and college basketball fans as well tend to lean conservative, right? So what's fascinating is when Donald Trump won the election, I went and looked at the results, and I said, oh, this is kind of interesting. Donald Trump won every state with an SEC school in it. They won every Big 12 state. and he won every Big Ten state with the exception of Illinois, which went, in a big way for Hillary, and Minnesota, which almost went to Donald Trump. So, and I'm not counting, by the way, for people out there who are hardcore sports fans, Rutgers and Maryland as traditional Big Ten schools because they're relatively new and they're East Coast schools. And so I think that that's kind of indicative of the issue that ESPN has going forward is that its audience is not anywhere near as liberal as its commentators. And usually what do you see when you have a disconnect between the way that you talk to people and your audience? That audience fritters away because they feel like they're being spoken to in a demeaning fashion. And I think that's what we see happening at ESPN.
Visiting with Clay Travis, OutKick the Coverage. You can hear him on our sister station, 1340 The Fan, 5 to 7 a.m. Weekday mornings. You also talked about ESPN having this bubble. And what I wonder is if you're a school like Texas Tech and you're a school that is really dependent on that TV revenue coming in, do you start to fear the future of being aligned with ESPN and that money one day just going away when every college is involved in building up their program and having the biggest and the best buildings and everything else? I mean, it is a true battle out there. If you're a school like Tech, do you worry about that money drying up at some point?
Well, I think certainly. Look, I mean, I think we're moving towards an industry where everything is a la carte. And if you don't think about the long-term business model that you're involved in, the reason why ESPN has made so much money is because every single person out there is paying around $8 a month for ESPN if you have a cable or satellite subscription. That's whether you watch ESPN or not. And so you do the math on that, that's roughly $100 a year. And ESPN is using that $100 a year they're getting from some 88 million subscribers to go out and buy sports rights. And the money that they spend on sports rights is artificially inflated because it's coming from people who never had an interest in sports otherwise, right? Like your Aunt Gladys out there in Lubbock, who has not watched a sporting event in a decade, is paying $100 a year, and over a decade will pay $1,000 to ESPN, even though she's not watching sports. And so I think what you're starting to see is that unraveling is starting to undermine the ESPN business model, and that's why, again, I think that so many of these television contracts as they currently exist are rooted in inefficiencies. And I think ultimately the people who actually consume this content are going to end up having to pay for it as opposed to all the free riders out there who help to subsidize the cost that never watch it.
You know, one thing that I think, just following you on Twitter, hearing your show, you like to play things right down the middle. You don't want to get too far to the left, too far to the right. You call out both sides, which I think in sports radio, I think that's a very good thing. But it looks, how often do you come under attack just from the trolls on Twitter and people who email you who think that you're now the big far right wing guy who's is going to KKK meetings?
Oh, I get it every day. I have always said this. I tell my kids now, I've got 3 boys. I say if your first response to somebody who is putting out a statement, right? Like I tend to be driven by facts, and I look at them and I say, I'm a lawyer, right? So my legal background is I've got to build an argument based on facts. And so if your first response to a argument is, oh, you're sexist, oh, you're racist, oh, you're homophobic, or oh, you're transgenderphobic or transphobic or whatever you want to call it, then it probably means your side has lost the argument because it means you're out of ideas. And that's the only way you can go is to attack the underlying person, not the message itself. And so I get it every day, but I kind of enjoy it because, I've reached the point where every time I get attacked, I get 10 new fans. So, I tend to publish that and retweet it. And, all attention is good attention as long as you aren't facing jail time is my mantra. I
know you went after Nike, their commercial the other day. Do you think that any part of the Nike ad when it was released was in response to Under Armour and the president, CEO of Under Armour embracing Trump and Nike coming out with their equality ad for everybody?
I think there might be a touch to that. I don't have any good sense for how long it takes to turn an ad like this. I imagine it's not something that gets done overnight. I think it was probably in the works beforehand and just worked even better for them. But what's crazy about the Under Armour story, and I wrote about this, is all the Under Armour CEO, Kevin Plank, said is that having somebody who's pro-business is good, he thinks is an asset for the country. I don't understand how you could possibly take that as anything other than the truth, right? I mean, Donald Trump, even according to his most ardent critics, is pro-business. I mean, that is a truth. And so I think what it establishes, and the question I think that is fascinating is, how in the world, if you're on Nike's board of directors or you're in Nike's meetings for new marketing ideas, did somebody not point out, okay, if we're going to say equality is our new linchpin, and we're saying that, like, there are no borders and equality is everywhere, don't you think we should probably have to address the fact that we pay $3 a day to workers in Indonesia? Just an idea. So we're not exactly treating everybody equally in our own house, and I don't begrudge Nike making its product as cheaply as possible to make as much money as they can. I'm a capitalist. But don't try to tell me that there are no borders to equality when you pay $3 a day to an Indonesian and they make 1/76th of what an American factory worker would.
Clay Travis, OutKick the Coverage. They can check out your website. Plug all your stuff because you've got a ton of platforms going. So plug everything. Tell folks where they can find more of you.
The easiest way to find me is at Clay Travis on Twitter. And also, I appreciate you giving me a chance to plug. OutKickTheCoverage.com is my website. I try to be smart, original, funny, and authentic every day on that site. And obviously we're on 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern, so 5 to 8 a.m. Central every single day with the national Fox Sports radio show, which you can hear on Sirius XM 83. And like you said, one affiliate station in your market there all over the country.
Clay, appreciate your time, and hopefully we can talk in the future as well.
Appreciate y'all having me. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. It's Clay Travis. Follow him on Twitter. Great follow at Clay Travis on Twitter.